He was fluent in Chinese and greatly admired by China, but upon taking power, he immediately abolished Chinese characters. He had many aliases, even his most well-known name was an alias. He was Ho Chi Minh, who led the Vietnamese people to defeat France and the United States, leading them towards independence. After his death, Saigon was renamed after him. Ho Chi Minh was born in 1890 in a Confucian scholar family in Nam Dan County, Ninh and Province, Vietnam. He was originally named Nguyen Chinh Kung. His father, a local scholar, achieved recognition in the Vietnamese imperial examinations, held a county office for several years, but was dismissed for refusing to flatter the French colonial authorities, growing up in an area where anti-French resistance was fervent. Ho Chi Minh's siblings were involved in anti-French patriotic movements, fostering his own desire to resist French rule. As an adult, Ho Chi Minh believed that he needed to see the world to understand how to achieve independence, so he worked as a cook on a foreign ship. Traveling extensively, he witnessed the hardships of people in various colonies, which only strengthened his resolve. After World War I, Ho Chi Minh went to Paris, France, under the alias Nguyen I Qua. He even participated in the Versailles Peace Conference, proposing autonomy for the Vietnamese people. However, the conference primarily focused on European issues and ignored his suggestions. Influenced by the October Revolution in Russia, Ho Chi Minh became a socialist and met Zhou Enlai, who was studying in France. Later, they both returned to Whampoa Military Academy to work together. In Guangzhou, Ho Chi Minh assumed the alias Li Ray, serving as an advisor to Sun Yat-sen, and as secretary and translator for Mikhail Borodin. In 1925, he founded the Revolutionary Youth League of Vietnam. Ho Chi Minh fought alongside the Chinese Communist Party, causing trouble for both France and the nationalist government, who issued warrants for his arrest. Eventually, he fled to the British Hong Kong concession under the name Lai Thi. During his time there, he pretended to be married to a member of the Chinese Communist Party, Lin Yilan, but their relationship ended when he was arrested by the British authorities due to pressure. Ho Chi Minh later escaped from Hong Kong after the outbreak of World War II. With France surrendering and Japan invading Vietnam, Ho Chi Minh saw an opportunity. Under the alias of Tho, he returned to Vietnam in December 1940 to prepare for the struggle for independence. In February of the following year, he secretly returned to his homeland after 30 years of absence, founding the Viet Minh to unite the people for liberation. During this time, to facilitate literacy, Ho Chi Minh decided to promote the use of the Vietnamese national language script instead of Chinese characters. French colonists had been promoting the Latinized Vietnamese script since 1886, marginalizing Chinese characters in Vietnam's educational core. In the early 20th century, the abolition of logographic scripts was a trend in East Asia, including Chinese characters, but it did not affect the friendly relations between China and Vietnam. After Japan's surrender, France attempted to reassert control, prompting Ho Chi Minh to establish a multi-party coalition government and negotiate with France. Despite reaching some agreements, France was not sincere, merely using negotiations to buy time for military preparations. In 1946, prepared French forces launched a full-scale attack on Vietnam. Ho Chi Minh immediately issued a call to arms, urging nationwide resistance. Initially outmatched, he retreated to the countryside to conduct guerrilla warfare, and sought aid from various sources. With China engaged in its own civil war, Ho Chi Minh sought assistance from the Soviet Union, but received none due to Stalin's focus on Europe. Eventually, in 1949, as the Chinese People's Liberation Army approached the Sino-Vietnamese border, Ho Chi Minh made contact with the Chinese Communist Party. He secretly traveled north, crossing mountains and forests to reach China, then continued to Beijing to seek assistance. From a geopolitical perspective, China could not allow French forces to reach its border with Vietnam, and the Vietnamese Communist Party was a brotherly ally. Ho Chi Minh, an old friend of the Chinese Communist Party, naturally received support from China. Despite China's own recent liberation, opening the road to China was pivotal for the war effort. With Chinese support, the tide turned in Vietnam's favor. In 1959, at the age of 59, Ho Chi Minh met with Mao Zedong, stating that they could defeat the U.S. Army. They had not only regular troops but also guerrilla forces, and the support of the people, as well as natural allies in the form of the climate, locusts, lunatics, and ants. The swamps were also their allies, as was the solid rear support from China. By 1969, the United States finally withdrew its forces after Nixon became president. He attempted to extricate the U.S. from the Vietnam War, which was nearing victory for the Vietnamese. However, on September 2, 1969, Ho Chi Minh passed away from heart failure at the age of 79. Coincidentally, September 2 was Vietnam's National Day, so the official announcement of his death wasn't made until 9 o'clock a.m. on the 3rd. Around 100,000 people attended his state funeral, with Premier Zhou Enlai, Marshal Ye Jianying, and Soviet Premier Alexei Kosygin among the attendees. 6 years later, North Vietnam unified the country, and in honor of Ho Chi Minh, Saigon was renamed Ho Chi Minh City. Throughout his life, Ho Chi Minh was known for his simplicity, often dressing in plain attire and leading his people with humility. Even as a leader, he wore simple khaki uniforms and rubber sandals while leading the resistance. He also established a secret supply route known as the Ho Chi Minh Trail to aid liberation forces in the South, which the Americans called the Ho Chi Minh Trail. Despite facing overwhelming odds, Ho Chi Minh's determination, strategic alliances, and unwavering commitment to his people's liberation eventually led to Vietnam's victory over foreign powers and the reunification of the country.